Hey everybody, this is Off Leash with Erik Prince. I'm Mark Serrano. We're here today talking in the wake of the assassination attempt against President Trump. Although many people have seen it over and over again, let's take another look at what took place at this rally in Pennsylvania.
If he was doing his job, I wouldn't even be doing this. I'd be at some beautiful place with a gorgeous ocean, the Mediterranean,
look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there, see him? He's laying down, see him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
Yeah, look.
And it's
There he
not
is.
easy because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here. And it's much tougher than if it happened. We have the strongest border ever. It's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that says
Since the attack against President Trump, Erik has taken to Twitter to give us his thoughts. He's got images to go along with it. I want to do a full breakdown on Erik Prince's assessment of this tragedy for many families, what didn't turn into a tragedy for America, thank God, and obvious security breakdowns around President Trump and his campaign rally. Erik, give us your take.
It's just we literally dodged a bullet. When you think about it, historically, massive wars have started from failed executive or diplomatic security. Think about World War I. It started when Francis Ferdinand, the heir to the throne of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was assassinated by a crazy person. In this case, a crazy person tried to kill the president. And the fact that he was allowed to get so close to within 150 yards of the stage of where Trump is going to be speaking is absolutely categorically malpractice. If you look at the images and you see just to the north all those industrial buildings with low flat rooftops, it gives you plenty of dead space for a would-be assassin to sneak in, establish a position, and take shots. Exactly what this bad guy did. Anyone with any professionalism at all would assess that situation with any kind of sniper training and say, that's the sniper hotel. That's the most obvious place a sniper is going to set up from. If you come at this from a predator's perspective, and that's really the danger of having only law enforcement do executive security. You want people that have a very offensive mindset. You want them to think like the attacker. Clearly they were not, because they missed the most obvious place that a sniper would set up and did so. And thanks be to God, there was a wind where the guy aimed badly, but literally the first round clipped President Trump's ear. Over a distance of 150 yards, there was about a 5, maybe an 8 mile an hour wind blowing. That's enough to slightly move the bullet, plus possibly bad aim, plus the president turned his head at the last minute. That's what saved his life. Nothing to do with any kind of preparation or excellence by the Secret Service. And it's pathetic. It is a massive fail. It is a blight on the reputation of that organization, and it must be remedied immediately. Because you can only imagine the stakes if President Trump were seriously hurt or worse, the effect that would have on the entire American nation.
You know, Erik, I had hours and hours of conversations with campaign officials and people who are on the ground who ran the event, planned the event, ran the event. And what's extraordinary and striking is some of their stories about what took place on the ground there. First of all, as a part of the presentation for the rally, in the past, the president has had slides put up on the big screens, the big monitors at the rally. They haven't been doing it lately until Saturday, until this event took place. He had statistics about immigration that he wanted up on the screen in a slide. And you know, at that moment before the shooting, he was talking about immigration. When he turned his head, Erik, that was to look up at the big screen to look at that slide, which hadn't been there in the recent rallies. Only that day did he have the slide to look up at, because as we've seen, the position of his head shifted just enough to save his own life.
Yeah, again, it's unclear. It's not confirmed. It's not been announced what the type of shooter, what the type of rifle he was using. I'm suspecting, I think the shooter took it from his parents. So the likelihood of it being a high-end 6.5 Creedmoor or a 7.62 gas gun, unlikely. It was probably an M4 shooting a 5.56 type round with a 55 grain bullet. Clearly, it did damage because it killed an individual immediately that it struck in the head. And again, thanks be to God, I'm told that Trump's eardrum was blown out from the crack of that bullet going by. You see him reach up and touch his ear. Suddenly, it's an unmistakable sound of a bullet snapping past your head, let alone that it actually clipped his ear.
Yeah, well, a news report shows too, Eric, just this morning, that the shooter had purchased 50 rounds of ammunition hours before the rally, just that day.
Again, I was really surprised when I first saw the tapes. And when you go to sniper school, you spend a lot of time in what's called the butts. And that's an area behind the impact berm where one half of the relay is shooting from the 100, 200 out to the 500 or 1,000 yard line. And the other guys are down behind the impact area. And they're the ones, so you pull the targets down and you mark them precisely so they know where they're hitting. So you can adjust the dope in the scope. And you really can start to tell the difference, how far away someone's shooting between the crack of the bullet and the boom of the rifle of the muzzle blast. And I was astounded when I first heard the tapes that the crack to the boom was so short. I couldn't believe that the sniper could be that close in, but clearly they were. And what an abysmal total fail. And now you see tapes of bystanders, civilians in the area, yelling at police, alerting them to the presence there. I even understand there was a policeman that tried climbing up on the roof, and then the shooter pointed his rifle at him, and the guy backed away, and the cop fell off. Again, there is no substitute for individual merit and valor in these kind of situations, and even for the snipers. I understand they even had an idea that the shooter was there, but some lawyer in the Secret Service prevented him from engaging, or prevented the rules of engagement from allowing a law enforcement officer, a sworn federal officer, that sees someone pointing an assault rifle at the previous president of the United States, and they're not supposed to shoot until the bad guy shoots first. It's abysmal. It's an example of truly unserious people being put in positions where they should not be allowed to make any decisions, because it literally almost cost the nation one of its greatest presidents on Saturday.
Well, and there's a lot of information that's come out already. Clearly, a lot of it is speculative. A lot of it is unconfirmed about the planning that took place on the part of the Secret Service, the assets and resources that they had in place and that they didn't have in place, suggestions that beefing up the Secret Service team around the president had been requested numerous times in recent months and was not heeded or fulfilled. This agency that's run by this woman, Cheadle, an agency obviously that's had tremendous controversy in the last several years, and notions and suggestions that the current First Lady had an event in the same area, so resources were applied to her. There's a lot of speculation going around. Also, by the way, that those buildings were outside the main security perimeter, and that they were the responsibility. The Secret Service is now pointing the finger at local law enforcement, as if that should make a difference when you've got such a short distance between the sharpshooter for the Secret Service and those buildings. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get to is, quickly on social media, a lot of people were talking about turning to private military contractors. There's a lot of talk about bring in someone with your expertise. Based on what we currently know, what do you think should be done with this agency?
Let me go back and first cover, they never actually covered the sniper hotel, meaning the logical place that a sniper would set up and engage the target area. And there was a water tower in the area, pretty easy to put a couple of guys up there with binoculars and a long gun, even having a couple of officers up on those industrial roofs. I don't think the people owning those manufacturing buildings would have objected to having a couple of cops walking around up there. But even putting it, again, on the water tower, kind of the first rule of and military and security matters is own the high ground, or put a drone on a tether up at 1,000 feet. Now you can see everywhere quite quickly. It shows an absolute B or a C team level performance. I understand that the First Lady had tasked some resources for the area. And to give you an idea, and this goes to another question, why is Joe Biden running? Because Joe Biden doesn't want to give up the White House. I even saw a story that Joe Biden had the Marine Band, okay, which plays Hail to the Chief when the president enters. She had the Marine Band generate a song unique for her, for the First Lady to play when she would enter the room for any events. So you kind of get the idea of the will to power behind Joe Biden. It's disgusting. Supposedly, the Secret Service doesn't beef up resources until a nominee is official at a convention. It's been pretty obvious Trump is going to be the nominee for months now. And I think it shows a true callous indifference by Mayorkas and the Secret Service for doing a really half-assed job for Donald Trump, and even for Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy, who is legitimately polling a few percentage points, he has a legitimate claim to want to have federal protection since his uncle and his father were actually assassinated while in the office of politics. So it is a true callous indifference. It's incompetence, or it's just full-on malign evil that allowed this to happen. We'll withhold judgment until all the facts are known, but it's really not looking good for team competency. And it's sad to see the Secret Service's reputation obliterated by bad leadership, inexperienced people that are not fully empowered to do this really, really critical job. Because like I said, like I opened with, wars start when some politicians can get killed, because there's cascading effects. It's a true butterfly effect when that happens. Now, you asked about private sector solutions and augmentation. I could speak to some experience because when the Iraq invasion happened and the U.S. was going to have a significant leader in the country, a kind of a viceroy for a while, in Paul Bremer, the original tasking was for the Secret Service to do it. And at that point, we had a couple people in country. We took the Secret Service around, and they said, there's no way we want to cover this. This is not how we operate, because they're used to being able to shut everything down and having total control, and doing it in a war zone was just not going to work for them. So yeah, they turned to the private sector, and Blackwater stepped up with 1,000+ guys in Iraq, with helicopters, with armored vehicles, with the whole package. That could be done in the United States. I don't see it happening. If someone's going to do it, it needs to be done under the color of some other state or local law enforcement. So the guys have some kind of credentials, badges, because otherwise it is first the mission is to do the mission, but also knowing of the likelihood of force being necessary at some point, whether it's a violent mob, an assassination attempt, or whatever. The private guys are always going to get hung out to dry, and so getting them deputized somehow under some law enforcement agency is essential. Clearly, there's a gap. Clearly, the Secret Service doesn't know what they're doing, or they lack sufficient resources. Nature hates a gap, and something's got to fill it. And I hope it's filled with competency and not with the incompetency that we've been seeing.
Yeah, well, and reports have come out that show that clearly The Secret Service was relying not just on local law enforcement, which is typical partnership arrangement for an event with a protectee like President Trump, but also that they're supplementing their personnel with Homeland Security agents. And look, I'm a layman, okay? And most laymen look at what took place on Saturday, and we are all outraged as a nation and saying, how in the hell can this happen? How in the hell can that guy get that close and for him not to be taken out before he was able to squeeze off some shots at the president and at the crowd? And so I think there's going to be a massive investigation. No one will trust it. And this is the problem. When you have such a massive failure, whether it's due to incompetence or some other reason, people don't trust it. In the post-COVID world, the censorship, military-industrial complex that Elon Musk has broken through with the ownership of Twitter. In this world today, people look at a situation like this and they don't trust it. They immediately go to the idea that the fix was in. It was a setup. So I'm not going there, but I'm simply saying that's why people don't trust government agencies like the FBI and like the Secret Service.
Because nobody gets fired. Nobody gets fired when you have a debacle in Afghanistan. Nobody gets fired ever. And let's bring back public shaming. And look, it's not just the advance team that failed to identify the obvious spot where a sniper is going to engage from and put resources there to prevent that. But even once shots were fired, the full-time Secret Service agents that are supposed to be on their game doing executive protection clearly did not know what they were doing. The fact that they had Trump there for almost 30 seconds or a minute, you get him off the X, because where they decided to attack that's where the attacker decided to make war on you. Get your principal off the X immediately, and they didn't. So it was buffoonery. When you have protective agents taking cover behind the president while the shots are incoming, that is clearly the wrong person with the wrong mindset and the wrong training that's been charged with protecting the President of the United States. So they're just wrong on so many levels. And I mentioned it in the article I did on X. Mm-hmm. Merit and executional excellence is all that matters. I don't care what gender they are or who they sleep with. I don't care. They have to be good protective agents. And clearly the very best protective agents that are available in America were not guarding Donald Trump that day. That is for damn sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and we'll exit on this in just a moment. But in that moment, when he is under a mound of agents on that stage, I knew, based on my own background, that he should have been swept away without a hesitation, without a moment's, to spare, to delay. Interestingly, Erik, I also know that under that mound of humanity, Donald Trump had enough composure to know that he wanted to send a signal to his audience and to the world that he was not, that his injuries were not life-threatening, that he was going to be okay. And he was not going to leave that stage until he was able to send a signal to the crowd. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, look, that was a brave and strong reaction by Trump. That was very much like Teddy Roosevelt when he had been shot by a pistol in the chest before he gave his speech. He gave the speech with a bullet in him, with blood in his shirt, for like 90 minutes. And he said it takes more than a bullet to stop a bull moose. That was his party. Brave, bold action by Roosevelt. Very brave by Trump to do that. But he didn't know if he was still in danger, if there was a second shooter or what. He was exceedingly exposed there, and blundering incompetence for the Secret Service to leave him there. Watch the video of when Reagan was shot and how quickly they got him into the car and out of there, get him off the X. The X is the spot where the enemy has decided to kill you. Get your protectee away from there immediately. It looked more like a rugby scrum. It was pathetic, and I was embarrassed for them. Yeah,
indeed. And what's interesting about the incident with Reagan, the shooting with Reagan is he ended up at GW Hospital with no senior staff with him. In this incident with President Trump, the team on the ground had enough sense and enough composure to quickly get senior staff in the motorcade so that they could be there with him for any decision making necessary. And that was because there were senior guys there who knew well enough and remembered the Reagan incident that they didn't want that to happen again in this case in Pennsylvania. Last word to you on this, Erik.
Let me say in closing, there are people that actually know what they're doing in America, how to protect executives in an extremely dangerous place. Nature hates a vacuum. There's a lot of people ready to help. I seriously don't think anything's going to change until we have an election. I just pray to God that Trump remains healthy and safe, and the rest of our politicians do until the election. Important note, Mexico just had an election. 27 of their politicians campaigning were assassinated by the cartels. We cannot let that come here.
Indeed. Excellent last word on this, Erik. Thanks for joining us. Folks, you need to take a look at Erik's Twitter account at @RealErikDPrince and take a look at his article on the incident and the attack against President Trump. That's all for this episode of Off Leash with Erik Prince. I'm Mark Serrano. Until next time.